Some students telling me they thought this was a drill, that there had been a fire alarm earlier in the day, and that they had been told a few weeks ago that there would be an active shooter drill, but never did they imagine it would turn out to be the real thing.
So basically, we went over a code red, which is gun on campus. We went over that about a month ago, and there was rumors going around the school that there would be a fake shooting to see how the students would prepare for it and stuff like that. So when we first heard the 2 gunshots, nobody did anything because we thought that that was a drill, you know?
Yeah. I assume that it's a code red drill because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks. One of my former students, a kid who's a senior named Joaquin Oliver, screamed, turned, he was shot. At that point, I looked down at the shooter. He looked at me, pointed his AR at me, and started shooting.
I smelled dust and I didn't know what it was, so I thought it was like the school trying to pretend like fake smoke.
We've had meetings with teachers talking about what to do in these type of situations. Actually pretty recently, and we've had initiatives to lock all the doors. Honestly, most of the time I thought it was a drill because we had heard things said that we were possibly going to have a code red drill, which is an active shooter drill.
We started going back to the classroom and taking in kids and yelling to kids in the hallway to get inside. And then after about 60 to 90 seconds, it's an active shooter.
They've trained all of the teachers recently to lock all of the doors and make sure in case a horrifying incident like this happens, we're as safe as we can be. And luckily, because of those actions, I think that training saved hundreds of lives today.
I think that really speaks to the training that we had. We had a training about a month ago, and we talked about these different scenarios and what to do. And so once we made it to the classroom and we heard the sirens and the helicopters, and it was very obvious based on the time that it was happening that it wasn't a drill.
One of my students' fathers is an enforcement officer and says they're going to come to the rooms, one by one.
They could be practicing a code red. They talked about doing this. They even talked about police coming on and, shooting blanks, to see what would happen. And I said, it's kind of weird. One of our admins got on and said, okay, evacuate the building. So they all knew where to go because I had briefed them beforehand. We had just had all this training and everything less than maybe about 3 weeks ago or so.
We had a code red from our administration which said that no movement. Everyone, all doors have to be locked back in the classroom. Don't let anybody in, even if they're banging on doors. And so I closed my door, and luckily I have six of my students here, and we're fine.
Are you still inside the building right now, sir?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm in my classroom.
You're in your classroom with 6 students?
Right.
In all honesty, it was more shock than anything. We thought this was a drill initially because we had been having rumors that there was going to be a code red drill for a while.
So while you were in the school, you said your sister was also there. Did you know where she was? I mean, this had to be a terrifying time.
It was absolutely horrifying, but we actually thought it was a drill initially because we had been hearing about having a possible code red drill, which is essentially a drill where we have an active shooter drill to ensure that we can survive this type of situation. But once we were all in the room and we started seeing the headlines, we realized this was anything but a drill. This was life or death.
You thought it was a drill, and you only knew it was real from looking at headlines in your phone?
Yeah, on our phone. We saw it on Twitter once it was eventually trending, but then we also saw multiple headlines coming from local affiliates like WPLG, which is the ABC affiliate here. I think it was WSVN, which is Channel 7 here. Just all of them coming in and us looking them up, and that's how we were really able to find it. And that's how we knew this was anything but a drill. And anyways, I was able to reunite with my father, who's a former FBI agent, and my sister eventually later. But first I reunited with my father after the SWAT had come in and told everybody, get down, put your hands up. And we all ran out of there as fast as we could get out to the street. And once I took that first step out there, I realized this was not a drill.
She said, I don't know if this is real or fake, because we had rumors going around the school that the police would do a fake code red with fake fake guns, not actual, but sounding real. And I thought at the beginning that this was it was all a drill. It was just a drill. Backpacks thrown everywhere. It was like a movie scene. There was gunpowder all over the floor. It was just so real, but it felt so fake. If I'm gonna be honest, it felt like 5 years, more than that. I was just so scared. I wanted to go home. I wanted the cops because my grandfather is a former state trooper.
I was extremely concerned for my sister, but we actually thought this was a drill at first, and an extremely realistic one at that. And I, in part, thought that because of the extremely well-executed response of the janitor and everybody else.
We have been practicing drills for months since we got back from winter break, and even before that. So when it first happened, we all thought it was a drill. And as soon as it got closer and closer, we all ran towards my teacher's desk for safety. As the shooting was going on, you can hear the glass shattering through all the halls and the bullet holes piercing the walls and everything, and it was just so horrible.
Still, she managed to call her father, who works for the sheriff's office. He went to the school and found Hannah.
When my dad picked me up, he picked me up about a mile that way down Pine Island Road, and he was coming from work. He turned on his lights and work truck because he works for BSO.
His father is a retired FBI agent, so he recognized immediately that this was a gun. This wasn't firecracker, this wasn't a drill.
We really thought this was a drill throughout much of it, surprisingly, because teachers and students had been talking about having a possible code red drill, which is an active shooter drill, for quite some time, and that's what we thought this was. But once we started seeing the headlines, we realized this was anything but a drill. This was life or death.
And journalist, David Hogg is here with me now. David, first of all, we're so happy that you are here and that you're alive and well. Thank you very much for stopping by.
She's a retired police officer for Coral Springs. Her name is Jill Shelton. I call her my aunt. We're very close. She was on the phone with one of the people at the scene, just giving me as much info. She was telling me to barricade as many people behind us, arm ourselves with whatever, so I grabbed a chair.
Oh my gosh, and you guys prepared for this. You were telling me, Zachary, that you guys had went through something similar to this, right?
Yes, I'm in a program called Police Explorers with the Coral Springs Police Department, and we did some active shooter training a while ago, and I remember they said exactly, school shooters, they'll use the tactic of fire alarms to get kids to come out of the classrooms, and I just put 2 and 2 together when it happened.
Wow. At first, it sounded like firecrackers because we had been planning for an event to happen, something like a staged area where we're going to do an active shooter scenario. So the first 7 gunshots that I originally had heard just sounded like firecrackers because they were so far away and it echoed through a hallway. But as more shots came in, I realized that it wasn't firecrackers, it was actually an armed shooter, and this wasn't a drill.
This is a bit of an exaggeration, but it seemed like every one of them knew this kid, this Nikolas Cruz.
Absolutely.
Did you know him?
Yes. Briefly, obviously we weren't friends, but we existed within the same JROTC program. He was friends with some of my closest friends. And that's when I heard 2 shots fired in the hallway. The first 2 shots, like, everyone in the room froze, right? Everyone was under the impression it was a drill. That's what we said to each other. And the 3rd shot was fired, and that's when we knew that it wasn't a drill. So I looked up and I looked in the window and I saw him, like, firing through the window. And then at one point, he stopped firing altogether and just, like, peered in and looked in and then walked away.
Did you know who it was?
Not initially, no, because I was under the impression there was multiple of them because of how many shots were being fired. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until I got to the hospital that I started making the connections, and then it clicked that it was Nikolas Cruz.
Yeah, I know about it, Nikolas Cruz, because I know him by name, I know him by face. He was in my company. He asked for a candy bar, funny enough. That's all he asked for. I think it was Snickers or something like that. So I went out of the store, I bought him it, and the next day, thereon after, came in with the uniform every day.
He started to take the bullets and load in the gun. I froze. He then said to me, "Get out of here. It's gonna start getting messy."
When everybody realized that and he started coming up the stairs, everybody started running back to their room. There was like a stampede of people just sprinting back to their rooms. We were all waiting at the door, and he comes over and he unlocks the door and we all get in, and I see this figure come up the stairs with this pistol. And I guess that was him.
This mom and her son survived separate mass shootings just 13 months apart.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Well, basically I was just in my biology class, right? And the drill went off. And we all thought it was a fire drill. So we started getting out, and then I heard some shots, and everybody started running. We just hid in the JRTC room, and we were all pretty scared, but it was a really scary situation. We didn't really know what was going on. I thought it was a drill at first, but...
Last year, yes, I was in the middle of the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting, and
a plan is what helped art teacher Annika Dean survive this shooting at the Fort Lauderdale airport. Annika Dean says because of her training, she didn't panic or freeze.
because I had been through 2 active killer trainings at Broward Public Schools, and so I knew what it sounded like.
I was about 2 feet away from my door. All of a sudden I heard gunshots in the stairwell, which is about 20 feet away from my room. And then kids were screaming and then running back towards me and towards the end of the hallway. So I just went in this very strange autopilot mode where I pivoted on my feet. I unlocked my door, and then kids just started pouring in my room. I don't know how many kids were in there, but I was pulling them and getting them in and shouting at them to get in the room. And then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before. I don't know when I decided it was the right time to close the door. I grabbed the handle with both hands, and that's when I got nicked or grazed or whatever you call it.
So a bullet hit your arm?
Yes. As I'm closing my door, I'm shouting at my next door neighbor, Mr. Scott Beagle, to close his door. But he couldn't see the shooter. I had a good visual of him, which is why I yelled at him to shut his door now. I heard him shoot a barrage of bullets into Mr. Beagle's room. And then he came to my room and shot about 4 or 5 shots into my room, breaking the glass of my door. There's a rectangular piece of glass. And I heard him continuously shooting down the hallway. And I never really knew when he left because we just thought he was still there. It was so quiet, and then all of a sudden I hear helicopters outside, far, far in the distance, it seemed to me. Police officers far, far in the distance. Kids were screaming in the hallway for help. We're trained not to let anybody in the room. And I would say a good 45 minutes went by, maybe an hour, and when we heard the SWAT team come on the floor, but I still didn't trust that it was them because they were banging on the doors. Police let us in. No one got up.
And we just recently, I work for Broward County Schools, and I'm a teacher for the elementary school in Coral Springs, one of them. And we just had the active shooting training at our school. Even recently, we were at the airport, and something was happening at the airport. And the police were running and scrambling at the Fort Lauderdale airport after that shooting. We were by baggage claim, and my husband was going to get the bags, and he was acting like it was a normal day, and I was just watching all of the police officers running, and that's where my head went. Where can I go and hide?
So Carly, I understand that you're headed to college next year, and I understand you want to be a journalist. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, I do.
And journalist, David Hogg is here with me now. David, first of all, we're so happy that you are here and that you're alive and well. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Well, I mean, we had just recently gone through a training, and I've been through a live action shooter training at my previous school. And, you know, flight or flight just takes place, and because at that point, I mean, you were hearing gunshots go off, and it was ricocheting with the sound off the other building, and we didn't know whether it was one shooter or 2. And one of the boys that initially ran into my room was like, "There's 2 shooters on," and
all the kids to go outside so they could start shooting up. So they started shooting from the first floor up, because there's only 2 exits in the freshman building. So everybody started running to the other exits, but that's when the other shooter started coming up. Everybody just starts pushing each other, running, and then we're kind of just like, is this what's happening? And then we realized, like, we thought this was a drill because they said they'll use blanks in a drill, but they actually didn't. It was real. They were trying to.
So you think there was more than? Do you think there was more than one shooter?
There's 3 shooters. That's what I hear. Definitely. We finally got out, and like they started yelling at us to keep focused and pay attention ahead. The army people. Because they didn't want us to see the bodies that they hid in the corner. They were putting mats over them so we wouldn't see them. No, one teacher's dead. That's what there's 2 security guards who are dead. The teacher's dead, and then my other teacher, she got shot in the arm, but she's fine. She just started walking home too.
For a little bit, we thought it was a drill, but then it really starts to set in that this is not a drill. This is real life, and just saying that, even this is not real life. This can't be real. can't be real.